What is up guys, Wraec is here with a new video, and today we are on the Pioneer server in the test version of the game, actually in the season Chains of Eternity. To not spoiler anything, I hid in this forest here, which I think looks pretty cool honestly. And what I did today was I did a ton of testing on the new Paragon Buff. So maybe we just start off by looking at a cool fight of a Kafra defeating a Talene. So why is there a Kafra defeating a Talene? Basically, on the Pioneer server there's currently a test program running, launched by the devs, about the Paragon Buffs. And if you have no idea what the Paragon Buffs are, I will explain it in a second. But right now, one side of the server has Paragon 1 heroes, the other side just has Supreme Plus. My enemy is only at Supreme Plus while I'm at Paragon 1, and I try to come up with an interesting team to defeat his Talene team. And yeah, well, I used the Kafra, which is a hero we very rarely see, and he was able to defeat this enemy team using this, well, more than mediocre or less than mediocre hero, while seemingly taking no damage at all. You can see it right there. So pretty crazy stuff, and this is what I tested today, and there were some quite interesting test results. You can see 66 billion damage right there taken by the Kafra. Quite crazy. So what are those Paragon Buffs that I was talking about? Well, every hero has so-called rivalry stats, and with the patch notes for the 1.31 update, AFK Journey has announced that they want to buff those rivalry stats on the Paragon heroes. So they are the ones that are currently in the game if you look at the global version, and that is something I wanted to clarify. The global version does not yet have the patch that buffs those stats. This is planned to be released on the 17th together with the season Chains of Eternity, but all the versions we see right now are still subject to change, so keep that in mind. We have the existing stats here shown in English, and then we have two more stats shown in Chinese that are going to be two entirely new rivalry stats. Rivalry stats in general are only active in PvP game mode, so not in Dream Realm, not in any PvE game mode, nothing like that, only in PvP game modes. And we can see the changes that they're planning to introduce on a nice graphic made by Chippy AFK. And he has played that quite nice. So we have the stats that are already available in the game. The first 6 are right here. They are always pairs. One that basically gives you a buff, and one that negates the buff for the enemy. So the idea is, if a Paragon 1 hero fights a Paragon 1 hero, then none of this buff actually takes effect, because he has a buff that gives him more energy on hit, and the enemy has a buff that negates it in the equal strength, so they basically negate each other. And that is the idea of this. We can see here in light gray the currently existing buff that is in the game, so 15 energy reduction on Paragon 1, and with the update it is planned to be increased to 18. Same for like Paragon 2, 30 to 36, and then it becomes non-linear. Usually it was 45, so it was 15, 30, 45, 60, which was a very linear increase. Now on Paragon 3 you will get higher buffs actually, and on Paragon 4 as well. They want to show that you need a ton more summons to get to Paragon 3 and 4, which I can't understand. I have no problem with the first part of this. Inspiration and Intimidation, however, are a bit of a problem, because they are, well, seem freakishly strong. Inspiration is supposed to heighten the energy, healing, shields and buffs that your team receives by 1% for every 1 point of inspiration that you have. Intimidation reduces the buffs, healing, shields and energy your enemy team receives by 1% for every 1 point of intimidation that you have. And again, we have the same concept of like one buff that increases something on your team, and one buff that negates it for the enemy team. And thus also, if your entire team is P2 and the entire enemy team is P2, none of this will have any effect. But if you have a Paragon advantage, which the devs actually forced on the Pioneer server to allow for testing, then you will come into the enjoyment of Inspiration and Intimidation, because then all your shields, all your healing, all your buffs, all your energy gain will be heightened through this Paragon advantage, while the enemy will get lower versions of all of this. So he will not get like 100% of his usual energy gain, he will gain less. It will be reduced by the intimidation. So that was actually allowed my Kafra right now to defeat that full enemy team. And it is actually quite insane, because the first thing I tested was like regular PvP, and I didn't even notice it that much here. I lost some fights when I set like a bad team, which was something I really wanted to try. I tried to go in with a little bit of an X-Weapon disadvantage and just try to set like not fully optimal team, and usually that led to me like losing and winning when I set like a better team. And I thought, okay, well, for the normal PvP it seems kind of alright. And then I teamed up with Testes. And he went ahead and set a Talene team that we just already fought, and we tried different teams and tried to beat this team. And yeah, it was quite crazy. We started off with like this Kafra team where I just used a ton of support heroes. And the great thing about support heroes is they give you a ton of buffs, a ton of healing, a ton of shields, and a ton of energy. So everything that is buffed by inspiration. So as long as you have a Paragon advantage right here, which we have, you can make real use of that. And I have more cool teams that I want to show you guys. So definitely something interesting right here. We use the Fae as well. And then we probably have the most famous version of the teams that I made today. The LUMONT team. We put LUMONT in there. And yeah, well, it ended up being absolutely crazy, because the one guy asked, well, can you make a Rhino carry? And I was like, a Rhino carry? And he meant LUMONT. Can we make a LUMONT carry? And the answer is yes, we can. LUMONT can absolutely carry us and do all the damage that is needed to actually defeat this team. This is the Paragon 1 version. We're going to take a look at the Paragon 2 version of this as well. And you can see, well, this LUMONT is absolutely unbeatable. It's a plus 15 Paragon 1 LUMONT, by the way. So it is fairly highly upgraded. But it just carries a Scalita and 2 Frestos around with him. And yeah, nothing that happens. Interestingly enough also, yeah, that was a Talene ult, and it didn't really do anything. Followed by a Scalita ult, just hit the shield, doing really nothing. And yeah, that continues to be the case. Like, once you are set and once you get like all your buffs going, there's hardly anything that can do something to your team. So that is a bit of a crazy thing. We can now, and that is pretty cool, because Testes actually set that actually up again. We can now try the same thing against the same team, but with Paragon 2. So we just saw the Paragon 1 version. Let's see Paragon 2. I will slow it down a little bit so that you see everything. We take a little bit of damage, of course, but now the shields get activated. Now we get a Hugin shield, and once we get like our buffs from Smokey, those will be higher, and we start getting healed by 1 million basically every second. And now check out this shield. Check out the shield that we have there. Nearly our entire HP bar is now shield, because our shield gain is high-end. And the enemy team is already nearly dead. We were attacked by Lily May. I don't know if you see it, but LUMONT just gets attacked by Lily May. It's a bit hard to notice. Of course that can get countered, but we are at 67 seconds and Smokey did his 3rd ult already. So merely 20 seconds into the battle, he did 3 ults. He didn't even hit anybody, but he did 3 ults in 23 seconds. So let's watch a replay of this, because I slowed that down, obviously. Maybe, yeah, it's a bit hard to notice, but we take barely any damage. We start recovering everything immediately. Then we start gaining massive shields. We deal massive damage. And take a look at that energy bar over there from our Smokey. We don't have a Rowan on that team. Check this out. And then we have the next ult. And that is already at 67 seconds. And we have the ult. One more time. I didn't even see the start. It is so crazy how fast the energy goes. Like, the energy is really the thing that had me for the first time. And then I noticed, okay, healing is pretty great, and shield gain. Coco, Hugin, actually crazy. Is this good? No. No, by no means. I'm laughing. And I absolutely enjoyed this. It was an absolute blast to test all of this. But this is not okay. Like, this is too much. Like, this inspiration stuff, the community manager asked me about this. Hey, should we leave this in the game like it is? And I showed him screenshots of this Kafra fight. I showed him screenshots of this LUMONT fight and said, well, it seems a little bit too insane. It's not like you can't beat this team. It is mostly like, this seems like a weird side effect. Like, if we fight with normal PvP teams, stuff seemingly works out. But once you get into those support teams, into those heal and buff heavy teams, you seemingly develop a new meta through this inspiration stat, which is, I think, totally unintended. and just weird. It's cool that this works, but it also, for many enemy teams, it feels like I can plug any single hero into this first slot, and as long as I support them by 4 support heroes, this walks through like the majority of the teams. Doesn't work with every single team, I have to say that. We have one team here, not in my settings, of course, in my friend list, will see you in pain. And what he set up was like a Bonnie team. Actually, it doesn't work against Bonnie. But what works is when I replace this same hero with Harak, then it looks like this. So we have a Paragon advantage of 2 on this one. That is something that I should notice as well. So we are on like Paragon 2, while he is on Supreme Plus. And Harak makes no prisoners if once we are at that point. I really have to say that. Harak, once he eats his first enemy, is an absolute monster. Yep. And I kind of have an idea why. Because the thing is, Harak gains up to 60% of the attack and max HP, up to 220% of his base attack. And it might be that this buff of 260% of his base attack also gets buffed by inspiration. Because I mean, that looks like it. That looks like it. That looks absolutely crazy. If he gets to eat anybody and that gets buffed by inspiration, yeah, that would explain a whole lot of things, because that's an entire enemy team in like 4 seconds. Yeah. So let's talk about this again. Should this be in the game? My answer was initially, when I just did the arena test, and maybe we can watch one of those fights. They look way more normal than everything else we did there. So what we have here is like a normal Talene fight. This will look way more normal than the stuff that I showed you before. This is triple speed though, which is a bit horrible. And when I looked at this, I was like, oh, it's okay. Like with one Paragon difference, it's tough, but if you set a better team, you can win. But the entirety of those teams with the buff heroes and the weird buff mechanics that can result from this, and maybe even higher Harak buffs, which is a theory at this point, but might be the case, I don't think they should put inspiration and intimidation into the game. Like, it's a bit crazy. But, and that is something that I want to say as well, at the moment they presented a very good testing plan to do this. Multi-day testing plan with us eventually reaching Paragon 4 on this test realm, and having multiple opportunities to test, and I will continue to do so, and are really looking into this, and I have the feeling that they are pretty sincere about wanting to know whether or not this is going to work. And thus I think having a few more days of patience would be a good idea, because I see people already writing about making refunds, which I think, I mean, I understand that if you lost confidence in the game doing well, that is, yeah, your decision what you do, if you quit or work on some refund if you see that is appropriate or legal in your country. It might depend. But like, maybe wait for the update to release. It is I think that is the better way to go forward with it. For me personally, inspiration and intimidation right now seem very, very weird. Like, allowing for such teams with the Kafra or the LUMONT is entirely unintended, I think. It makes supporters somehow super strong, creates a side matter. And yeah, I don't think they should release this. But it's funny for the moment, so let's take a look at it. Maybe we can find some more teams and make some more crazy stuff. If I find some more crazy teams, I will definitely take a look at it and show them in the video. So with that, I wish you a great day. We'll see us in the next one.